He was everything I ever wanted: charming, successful, attentive. We met at a gallery opening, his eyes locking onto mine across the room. Our connection was instant, electric. 2 years flew by in a blur of romantic dinners, exotic vacations, whispered promises. We were building a life together, or so I thought. He would leave for work each morning, briefcase in hand, a quick kiss goodbye. I'd spend my days painting in my home studio, our dog Scout curled up at my feet. Evenings were for us, we'd cook together, watch movies, talk for hours. It was the kind of easy, comfortable love I'd always craved. Then, the late nights started. Work dinners, he'd say, his voice apologetic. But his eyes held a new kind of fatigue, a weariness that had nothing to do with spreadsheets and presentations. I'd catch him staring into space, a furrow in his brow. When I'd ask what was wrong, he'd shake his head and force a smile. "Just tired, babe." The scent of her perfume clung to his clothes, a cloying floral I didn't recognize. He started showering the second he got home, the steam carrying away more than just the day's grime. My gut twisted with a sickening premonition. Something was off. My picture-perfect world was starting to tilt on its axis. I told myself I was being paranoid. He loved me. We were happy, weren't we? But the doubts gnawed at me, fueled by every missed call, every unanswered text. Sleep became my enemy, the long hours filled with unsettling dreams and a bone-deep loneliness. My friends noticed the shift in me, the forced smiles, the faraway look in my eyes. They offered platitudes, reassurances that I clung to like a life raft. But deep down, I knew. Something was terribly wrong. My intuition, usually so reliable, screamed at me to face the truth. But what if the truth was something I couldn't bear to see? It was a Tuesday, the rain lashing against the windows. He was late again, his phone going straight to voicemail. A knot of anxiety tightened in my chest. I paced the living room, Scout whining at my feet, sensing my unease. Just as I was about to call his office, his phone blinked on the coffee table. A message. My name blazed across the screen in his familiar font. Relief washed over me, momentarily eclipsing the fear. He was okay, he was thinking of me. But as I swiped to unlock the phone, my blood ran cold. It wasn't his voice that greeted me. It was a woman's voice, husky and low, and the words she spoke shattered my world into a million pieces. "Hey babe, just wanted to confirm our dinner plans for tonight. Same time, same place, can't wait to see you. XOXO. The words hung in the air, a physical manifestation of his betrayal. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. He walked in then, his face flushed, his hair damp from the rain. He froze when he saw me, the phone clutched in my hand. The color drained from his face, his eyes widening in recognition. In that instant I knew. No words were necessary. The truth was etched on his face in the way he averted his gaze. The words tumbled out of me, a torrent of anger and pain. He stammered, trying to explain, but the sound of his voice, usually so soothing, now grated on my nerves. He spoke of stress, of feeling lost, of a momentary lapse in judgment, excuses, all of them, just excuses. But as the initial shock wore off, a strange sense of calm washed over me. It was as if a switch had flipped inside me, replacing the devastation with a steely resolve. This wasn't the man I thought I knew. This man, this stranger standing before me, had been living a lie, and I deserved better. Much better. The days that followed were a blur. There were tearful phone calls to friends, the packing of boxes, the awkward division of belongings. He pleaded for forgiveness, swore he'd do anything to make things right. But the damage was done. The trust, once unbreakable, lay shattered at our feet. I moved into a small apartment across town, taking only Scout and a few essential belongings. The silence was deafening at first, the absence of his presence a constant ache in my chest. But slowly I began to rebuild my life. I painted, I cried, I allowed myself to grieve the loss of the future I thought we had. One afternoon, a few weeks later, a bouquet of lilies arrived at my doorstep. Tucked inside was a card with a single word scrawled across it. Sorry. It was from him, of course. I should have tossed it out, ignored it completely. But something stopped me. I found myself reaching for my phone, dialing his number for the first time since that fateful night. His voice was thick with emotion as he apologized again, his remorse palpable even through the phone. But this time, his apology wasn't just for the affair. It was for something much bigger, something that explained the late nights, the fatigue, the distance that had crept into our relationship. He confessed that he had been battling an illness, a diagnosis he had been too afraid to share. The woman in the voicemail wasn't a lover, she was his doctor. The late nights weren't spent in the arms of another, they were spent undergoing grueling treatments, clinging to hope. He hadn't wanted to burden me, hadn't wanted to see pity in my eyes. My anger dissolved into a wave of guilt and compassion. I had judged him, condemned him, without knowing the full story. Life, it seemed, had dealt us both a cruel hand. But instead of facing it together, we had let fear and misunderstanding drive us apart. We spent hours on the phone that night, talking, crying, sharing our fears and regrets. It didn't erase the pain of the past few weeks, but it did something else. It opened a door, a possibility of forgiveness, of understanding, of rebuilding what we had lost. We weren't the same people we were before. We were both broken, scarred, but maybe, just maybe, we could heal together. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope.